and welcome to the NCC Newsroom at the Newhouse School of Public Communications. I'm Sunny Balkin.
And I'm Sabrina Majori. This is the 8 o'clock live stream of Democracy in Action, an annual Election Day series covering voting around Onondaga County, run by the broadcast and digital journalism and newspaper, magazine, and online departments at Syracuse University.
First, let's take a look at some of the biggest elections this year, starting off with the county executive seat. In the race for county executive is incumbent Republican Ryan McMahon going up against Democrat Tony Malavenda.
McMahon took over as county executive after Joni Mahoney stepped down last year in the middle of her term. McMahon's pie plan focuses on poverty, infrastructure, and economic development. He's seen some success over the last year by lowering unemployment and cutting taxes.
Going up against McMahon is Democrat Tony Malavenda, who has an uphill battle considering the fact that Onondaga County has never had a Democratic county executive. He ran for office back in 1980s, but as a career businessman, and he plans to modernize the city with plans such as adding more street art.
And it's a three-man race for district attorney. Incumbent William Fitzpatrick is running for an 8th term, but goes up against fellow Republican Gary Levine and Democrat Chuck Keller.
And for Onondaga County Comptroller, Republican Matthew Beadnell is up for re-election for the first time after being appointed as comptroller less than a year ago. He goes up against Democratic challenger Marty Masterpole. The polls close in less than an hour, so it's your last chance to make it to a polling location and cast a ballot in some of the local races we just mentioned. Democracy in Action reporter Cole Johnson is live at the Manoa Municipal Building to tell us about voter turnout there. Cole?
It's been a long day of voting here in Onondaga County. A long 15 hours, starting as early as 6 o'clock all the way until the close at 9 o'clock tonight. And it hasn't been the greatest weather-wise either. It was pouring earlier. It's pretty cold here tonight, but that hasn't stopped people from flooding in to the polls here in Manoa. There was a turnout that was quite unexpected, a turnout that has reached over 400 people here in Manoa. That doesn't seem like a lot compared to the population of about 3,500 people in the village, but votes have come in steadily throughout the day according to the women working in the building, which has kept them busy. Being the first year of early voting in New York, the numbers on Election Day would seem to dip quite a bit. Manoa officials didn't even expect 300 voters at this location. Yet, Lisa Owens, elected chairperson of the polls, thinks it was a pleasant surprise. Although the unexpected amount of people due to the early voting, it turned out to be helpful to all voters.
I think it probably helped people that, to go out that maybe weren't going to go out, just from one day. There was a lot more opportunity for them to go out and vote or whatever.
We stopped about a quarter mile down the street at another location here in Manoa, the St. Mary's Parish Center. That seemed to have a pretty good turnout as well. And with now less than an hour before the polls shut down, it wouldn't be a bad idea to keep an eye out for the clock, look at that 9 o'clock hour, and see which officials are going to be running your county. Live in Manoa for Democracy in Action, Cole Johnson, back to you guys.
Thanks, Cole. More than 8,000 people took advantage of early voting in Onondaga County this election cycle. It was the first time voters in New York State could cast their ballots ahead of Election Day. According to the County Board of Elections, the highest day for early voting was on Sunday. More than 1,500 people turned up at the polls.
And it was a dreary day today, lots of clouds and pouring rain. Our Shoshana Stahl is in studio to tell us how that could have impacted Election Day. Shoshana?
So I went to the Jewish Community Center earlier today to find out if the rain was going to affect voter turnout.
Cold, rain, and gray skies. The making of any normal day in central New York.
Storms and rain and snow. Come on. This is life.
But today isn't any normal day. Today is Election Day, and nothing could stop Cecile Cohen from coming out and voting, a tradition she has done for most of her life.
My parents took me at 18 down to the town hall in Cherry Valley, New York to get me registered to vote. Back in the 50s when I grew up, voting Election Day, nobody went to work. School was out. I mean, everybody was given a chance to go vote. It's not that way today.
This year's election focuses on local government, with the county executive, district attorney, and county comptroller races. But to voters like Charles Fahey, it doesn't matter how big or small. Every vote counts.
If you're going to live here, you have to contribute to the common good. And so with whatever insights we have as individuals, we have to contribute those insights by voting.
Cohen says there's also a deeper meaning behind the votes.
We don't want that freedom taken away, like it feels like that's happening today.
And no weather will stop these voters from expressing their freedom.
Rain or shine, snow even.
Cohen told me she thinks early voting this year allowed people to vote who might have been able to today. Reporting live for Democracy in Action, I'm Shoshana Stahl.
All right, thanks so much, Shoshana. The weather today may not have stopped voters from getting to the polls, but some significant flooding from over the weekend forced local officials to move the location of several polling sites.
That's right, Sabrina. Flooding from last Thursday's storm is still affecting residents in Herkimer County. Communities along West Canada Creek are dealing with floodwaters that have been causing bridges and roads in the county to close. The water is so bad, actually, that it's having an impact on voting today. The town of Fairfield's polling location has been moved from the Corey Fire Station to the Fairfield County Court. Let's take a look at some of the tweets that are being said about this. About this damage. This is just from 3 days ago. Here you can see that the flooding has actually made its way from the West Canada Creek to the neighborhood of Middleville. Residents were warned to stay away from roads such as these. Now, here's another tweet, as you can see, from @SWhiteHT, which says that these pictures are really illustrating the polling location of why it had to move. Of course, it didn't have to move too far. The courthouse is only about a 4-minute walk away from town court. And last but not least, as you can see, National Grid has put out a tweet to keep residents up to date about the power. You could reach out to them for updates by texting REG to 64743. Remember, polls close at 9 tonight, so take into account the weather and the flood conditions.
It's not just candidates on the ballot today. Syracuse voters had the chance to vote on Proposition 1. If approved, the proposition would place an independent commission in charge of redistricting. District lines in Syracuse haven't changed in 2 decades, and redrawing districts is a job typically left to politicians. If the proposition passes, community members would be tasked with drawing the lines instead. The redistricting would happen after the upcoming 2020 census.
The common council should have a say in anything that goes on in the city.
Do it once, do it nonpartisan, get it done, and then just move along.
If approved, Syracuse would become the first city east of the Mississippi to implement this nonpartisan way of drawing district lines. And the polls close in less than an hour, and despite the weather, voters and candidates seem to be taking advantage of the remaining time. Alexandra Jennerjohn is in Cicero, where she says the cold doesn't seem to be slowing anyone down.
I'm outside Believers Chapel in Cicero, where voters have just under 1 hour left to cast their ballots. It's currently 42 degrees. I've only been out here for 10 minutes and I'm absolutely shivering. But the weather didn't stop one man from standing outside since 6 this morning. That man's name is Dick Kirschman, and he's running for Cicero Town Councilor. He's been involved with the community for decades and says his enthusiasm hasn't wavered. His hope is that the people who come to vote today have done their research and support the candidate that best matches what they stand for.
Everybody has different priorities, and when you look at a candidate, you have to decide if they meet, and if you can overlook some things that maybe you don't agree with for the better good.
Kirschman says the majority of the people that pull up to the polls to vote usually have their mind made up prior to coming here. But he says if standing out in the rain and the cold all day can influence just a few people who are on the fence, that it's all worth it. Reporting live for NCC News, I'm Alexandra Jennerjohn.
Thanks, Alexandra. If you're wondering where to access election results, just search Onondaga County Board of Elections online. Be sure to click on ongov.net. Once there, find the tab labeled Election Results in the left-hand column. A drop-down will say Current Election Results, and that's what you'll want to select. This will direct you to another website. Once there, select 2019 General Election. As of now, there won't be any results posted, but you should be able to view the results after polls close tonight at 9.
That's all the time we have for the last Democracy in Action live stream today. From all of us at the Newhouse School, I'm Sunny Balkin.
And I'm Sabrina Maggiore. Remember, there'll be more content added on our website throughout the evening. Thanks so much for watching.